New England on the road was just what an amazing time. You know, it's a little bit bittersweet because when you look back at it, even today, I mean, you know, the CDs are still available on CD Baby and things like that, and fans can write in and give comments. And whenever I read some of these comments, it's bittersweet because everybody, without a doubt, says, "Oh, you were my favorite band. Why didn't you guys make it huge? You know, you should have been as big as this and that." So on the one hand, it was such a happy time and such a great time. On the other hand, you know, you look back at it and you go, "Boy, what it really could have been." Of course, some of my friends say, "What are you, nuts? You played at Madison Square Garden." But you know, all good things come to an end. And in '83, I think we did our last gig, believe it or not, with the Ramones. And the audience was, as a Ramones audience should be. They were spitting all over us and screaming at us. So at that point, it was like, okay, we're done. You know, I had to decide what I wanted to do. And I was always in the studio, and we were lucky because we got to work with Paul Stanley from Kiss. Todd Rundgren produced one of our albums. Mike Stone, who produced Asia, Journey, and did all of the early Queen stuff, was our producer for several albums. So I got to stand and, you know, like look over their shoulders and watch what they were doing, and I just love production. I love arranging songs, and I love songwriting, and that's a huge part of production. So I got an opportunity back to learn a whole lot from these amazing producers, and I was kind of like a sponge. I was just kind of like sucking it all up and asking the questions. I said, "Hirsh, leave me alone. I'm in the middle of a mix." And I said, "No, but what are you doing now?" So I just started producing, you know, I had to earn a living, and that was kind of important to pay the rent. So I started my own production company, and didn't know how I would do. My first production, I was scared, you know, scared stiff, and you know, am I going to be able to do this? And it turned out pretty good, and then people started to know who I was as a producer, and so I just worked constantly from, you know, the early mid '80s all the way up through the '90s as a producer, and you know, I'm fortunate to say that, you know, I was voted Best Producer of the Year for Boston Music Awards and the Boston Phoenix Best Poll and stuff like that. So it's kind of an affirmation for me of what I had started to do when I really didn't know whether I would succeed. Learned a lot, and you know, technology is, I'm kind of a technology buff, and you know, it worked out really well. Technology changes all the time. Now we're into, you know, everything's digital, Pro Tools and all that, and I have my own recording studio up in my attic at the house. And I joined forces with a longtime friend of mine, Gary Boris, and we became partners in our musical endeavors, and he was more or less managing me, and we put together our own little record company, and we had affiliations with Marquee Avalon, which is our record label in Japan, and MTM in Europe. And most of the stuff that I was producing, we were sending out to those guys, and they were releasing the albums and CDs, which is a great thing for both the artist and us. And the Japanese folks were huge New England fans, and of course they were always asking me, "Hirsh, do you have any material of your own that you'd like to put out?" And so Gary sent them a single track that I had produced in the studio, and they just immediately signed me to a record deal for a solo album, and it was called Wasteland for Broken Hearts, and it's out on our label GB Music here in the States, and Marquee Avalon in Japan, and MTM in Europe. And that was a great opportunity for me to be able to actually do my own solo album, play as many of the instruments as I could, and where I couldn't fill in the holes, like lead guitars and things like that, had some of the best players around come in and actually do the tracks for me. So that was a great opportunity, just one of the things that I really wanted to do. For the last couple of years, I've been working on my second solo album. Hopefully that'll come out at some point, and we'll see what happens with that.